Just last week, we covered an article written by Polly Thornby from The Guardian, who was in contact with one company that she's been following since Brexit, asking how's it been going. And you may remember the comment that we wrote, that we read from the guy who'd been in charge of that company, saying it'd been an absolute nightmare, that he spent thousands upon thousands of pounds preparing for this new UK safety mark that was meant to be coming in over a year, and thousands of pounds spent on it. And yet, at the very last moment, no, we're keeping the European mark. And it's been a nightmare. It must have been an absolute nightmare for UK businesses to be really experiencing that amount of uncertainty and preparing for something they didn't even know what the rules were going to be for these for this new UK safety mark, because no one knew. It's typical for anything about Brexit. The government doesn't really know because, well, that's almost Brexit in a nutshell at this point. But I did ask the question, what about other companies? What about other different areas, different industries? Were they experiencing the same thing? And it looks like I was right. I was very, very right, because there have been letters sent in response to that article examining some of the chaos that this changes has caused to UK businesses and UK companies. And to be honest, if you've been following this Brexit mess as long as I have, nothing surprises you about this, because you come to expect it. Because everything you hear is the government panics, drops it seemingly last minute because it knows that there's going to be a massive uproar from businesses, and especially by a government that is desperate to try and prove its economic credibility. It does not very good look if you upset the vast majority of businesses, and also the vast majority, let's face it, of Tory party donors and supporters who happen to be donating to you. It's not a good look. So let's go over these two letters that were sent in response to the article, because it once again shows you that the first time, that last video we had, was a manufacturer who'd been creating safety valves. Now we're going to hear from a guy who's in the medical instrument industry. And then we're also going to hear from an engineer who used to work for a FTSE 100 company. Both these people work in vastly different industries, but both have huge causes for chaos and concern that the changes, that this limbo that they were in from this UK safety mark for well over a year had left them in. So let's just find out what these other industries were suffering from. And I guarantee you, these are not the only stories out there. I guarantee you. But before we go over these letters, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. As always, like I say, you know the drill by now. Click the like, click the share button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to help the channel, Patreon, One of Station Link, Buy Me Coffee. You know the job, you know the drill by now. But as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. So let's go over to this. So like I say, these were letters sent into the Guardian by this. So here's the first one. So this is a by someone called Roger Baston, who's the Professor Emeritus, the surgical infection at the University of Nottingham. So this is what he had to say. So the enormous waste of resources due to red tape described by Polly Thornby in The Business is Haunted by Brexit and the Safety Mark Fiasco is just the latest nightmare, 4th of August, is not just confined to British businesses. It has severely affected the UK research in areas of medical devices. Not a surprise, because again, medical devices, highly regulated. Having, a highly respected safety mark, which you can trust, pretty important. And the UK one was not that. That was not the mark they were looking for. But he continues. So scientists need to partner with manufacturers in order to get these devices out of the lab and into the clinic. But what we and others have experienced, and our industrial partners are withdrawing support and pulling out of agreements because it is simply too costly to embark on double certification of potential products. And as we've said, not only that, but we've said this multiple times when this was even put forward as an idea. Double certification is just so costly because you're effectively having to do the same thing twice, and it just costs a company too much. Even big companies, and especially this, which will be where most medical devices come from, and UK research carried out by universities. Remember, one of the big programs for the Brexit government was that we were going to sort of focus our universities and let them work more with businesses so that businesses could partner with them to do more research. All these new Brexit stuff that they've introduced haven't helped that. They've hindered that immensely. As you've just seen now, it's too costly. So you've seen manufacturers pull out of agreements with things like that, and that is a huge blow to universities. But back to it. So this has been a blight on valuable further research in this area and on devices that could have saved the NHS large sums in reduction of ill health and improvement on treatment outcomes. And unfortunately, we are now faced with yet more uncertainty because we are told that it is unclear whether the U-turn applies to medical devices or not. So that's an even worse situation because medical devices weren't actually mentioned in this U-turn. So if you don't know about the UK sort of economy, medical devices is actually something that the UK is relatively actually good at. And yet here you have, once again, an industry that is really, really important to the UK. It's just been left in complete limbo. As I said at the beginning, should I be surprised? Absolutely not. But that was not the only letter. That was not the only letter. Because the next one comes from a retired product compliance engineer. This is what he had to say. So, as a retired product compliance engineer for a FTSE 100 company, I read with interest Polly Tomby's article. When the UK was a member of the EU, we had a vote in the European Parliament on any new EU directives coming forward. We will now have to change UK laws to keep in step, but will have no say on new EU laws. In addition, we have no control over the EU CA, that's their safety mark making process. So we will just have to accept EU updates. Instead of take back control, the slogan used by the Brexiteers, it should have read, let's lose control. Again, are we shocked by this? No. And I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if there are other manufacturers out there from different industries that are either breathing a sigh of relief because they can continue using the European safety mark, or there are even others, as you saw with the medical industry there and in the medical devices, something which, again, as the UK, we are actually generally quite good at. It has been just left in complete limbo. Once again, this should be really shocking, but it's really not, because this is always the case when we've covered this right from the very beginning. Whenever we've covered any business news, it's always the same. Businesses either thankful that they've reversed a Brexit decision, fearful that they're going to lose all sorts of customers, have to pay extra £100 in costs, regulation, and all sorts of extra red tape, or in this case, the medical device industry left in complete limbo because they have no idea if these new rule changes or new rules that the UK government might come up with or might decide to just U-turn because it had no idea in the first place even applies to them. So, once again, Brexit, complete and utter chaos. Not surprising, to be honest, to anyone. But, as always, thank you very much for watching, as always. And, of course, we'll see you all next time.